Reminder to mute.
Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, May 11th. Welcome back to IBS Negotiations. Nice to see you all on this rainy morning. Good day to stay home in bed, right? But we're not far. We're here. We're here ready for negotiations, and I will turn it over to our facilitators, Dave and Jim, to get us going this morning.
Good morning, everybody. How are you doing? Good to be back. And I looked over your stuff that you did from Monday. Looks like you did great work. I texted Dennis and talked to him and last night, and he was very positive about how the day went. So let's start with our check-in. And there, I added a question today just to break it up a little bit. So the check-in is, who are you? Position and district. How are you? Issues, elephants, expectations. And then the question for the day is, if there's a silver lining behind the COVID-19 issue and the stay at home and safer at home and all of that for you, what is it? So let's start with Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison Alter, social studies teacher at Horizon High School. No issues or elephants. Expectations, I would love to hopefully make a decision on elementary planning time. Do a thumbs up, maybe. And then silver lining, I guess. It gave me a lot of time to figure out. I recently have gotten into beekeeping, and so it gave me a lot more time to figure out how to do all that, and I can like check on them all the time and like go outside and see how they're doing. So maybe that's my silver lining. I don't know. It's kind of hard to come up with one right now.
Sounds good. Thanks, Allison. Teresa.
Good morning. I'm doing well this morning. Tessa Barajas at North Glen Middle School. I forgot to say that first. No issues or elephants, expectations, just to get a lot of good work done today. Silver lining, I have a 17-year-old daughter, and I was having that sense of her independence was starting to make me feel like I'm not going to get a whole lot of time with her in the next few years. Like, she's out with friends. And so it gave us a chance to just really connect deeper and spend a lot of time together. And so I'm really enjoying that. And so I'm kind of worried about the next few months when we are able to go out and about again, because I really enjoy my time with her.
Very good. Deborah.
Good morning, Deborah Blake, special education teacher, Arapahoe Ridge Elementary School. I am well today. I have no issues or elephants. Expectations is let's figure out elementary plan time and try and get a TA on this thing. Silver linings. I think, in some weird way, I have less stress being at home now that I have stopped trying to figure out technology. So that was a bear and highly stressful for the first several weeks. But at this point, yeah, I think not having to get in the car and drive a half an hour each way just adds on a little bit more time at home, a lot more time with my husband and my dog. And so, yeah, feeling a little less stressed at the moment, which is unusual for the end of the year for us.
Shelley.
I'm Michelle D. Rock. I teach third grade at Meridian Elementary. I'm doing well today. I don't have any issues or elephants. My expectations are that we will continue to work hard and maybe even finish up elementary plan time. And the silver lining for me is easy. You know, because I've had to spend some time at the hospital while I've been in these meetings. My cousin, who's more like a sister to me, we both have only brothers. And so we grew up spending a lot of time together. And she was diagnosed with cancer in late November. And I did spend some time early on helping her with appointments and traveling back and forth to the doctor. But then because of our IBS schedule, I told her that I couldn't miss more school because IBS was going to be causing me to miss some school. And she was sad and disappointed, but then lo and behold, I have a lot of time to spend time with her and help take care of her. She's at the hospital this morning, but I'm here at her house because she was able to take herself. And the last time I was there, they wouldn't allow me to stay, but I was her ride. So she went on her own today. And she's hanging in there.
Very good. Heather Espinoza.
Good morning, Heather Espinoza. I teach second grade at Woodland. I am fine today, no issues. Expectation to get through the agenda, and I don't know if it's my silver lining, but my kids convinced me to get a puppy, so definitely their silver lining, and hopefully it will become mine as well in time.
Oh,
Good morning, everyone. Bo Fobert. I serve the district as Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction. I'm well. Like to wish a slightly belated Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers on the call. World's most significant and important job, and give you thanks for all you do. I'm well today. Expectations are the same to move things forward thoughtfully, deliberately, and in good service to others. Silver lining for me is probably two things. One, being able to have really substantial and important conversations with my wife, the conversations we always say we need to have, but seem to never have time to have. So we've had a lot of those, and that's been good. And then because there's been no other friends available, my daughters have had to rediscover how to find each other to be good friends and engage with each other. And I've seen so much change in them. They're not begrudgingly entertaining each other, but doing so willingly, and I think discovering a lot of new love for each other. So that's been heartwarming for sure.
Colleen.
Hi, Colleen Gardner, sixth grade math teacher, Shadowridge Middle School. I'm doing well today. I have no issues or elephants. I'm expecting to get some good work done today and jam out this elementary plan time, hopefully. My silver lining is getting to see how compassionate my sons are. Get kind of teary. They took care of me when I was really sick. My youngest, he is in the grocery world, and he was like, no one's leaving the house. I'm going to get all the groceries. And when I try to pay him back, he won't let me. So it's nice to see that they are compassionate young men, and that's my silver lining.
Very good. Chris.
I'm Chris, superintendent, doing well today. No issues or elephants. Expectations, hope to hammer out planning time as well. And in terms of a silver lining, I'm in that spot of being grateful for not having a commute. It just allows me, unfortunately, to have more time to work without having to crowd that later into the evening and with family time.
Heather Grecius.
Good morning. I'm Heather Grecius, Director of Elementary for Student Support Services. I'm great today. I have no issues or elephants. My expectation is that we finalize elementary plan time. Besides spending time with my daughter, which is always fun, professionally, this has really pushed us into really thinking about how we provide high quality support to folks. And so I think it's, made us really look at how we could do things differently, and it's been healthy for us. So.
Very good. Dorman.
Hello, I am Dorman Land. I'm a middle school teacher. I am feeling bold today. You can tell I have two different patterns, my tie and my pocket square, different patterns. So very bold, ready to go to solve the challenges that our students in our district are facing. Let's see, I expect to do great work. We're gonna do some good stuff today. I have no elephants. Silver lining to quarantine, I think, would be not only for myself, but just as an institution, our tech skills are going way up. We're gonna have some really interesting, when we get back to face-to-face, we'll still have some awesome skills that we can employ for our students. So I'm very excited about that, actually. So,
Norman, you're looking sharp, let me tell you, sir.
thank you.
Nancy.
Good morning, I'm Nancy Leonard. I'm a retired principal with Adams 12. I'm feeling good. I have no issues or elephants, and like everyone else, I expect us to do a lot of good work and hopefully get done with the elementary planning time today. My silver lining is kind of like Dorman's. I'm actually learning a lot more about technology, and it's helping. And like you, Dave, I have trouble getting into the Google Docs, so I'm getting better at it. That feels good.
Laura Leppy.
Good morning. I'm Laura Leppy. I teach math at Hallstrom. I have no issues or elephants. My expectations are that we continue our awesome work that we always do. My silver lining is, as you guys know, I work like 9 days a week. And so this is the first time in, I don't even know how long, that I've been home for more than a couple hours at a time. And so I actually got everything graded when I was supposed to, which was amazing. And the other math teacher finally let me do all of my tests online, which I've been begging her to let me do for a couple years. And so it's been, like Deborah said, actually surprisingly, now that it's like in the group, a little bit less stressful. And like Chris said, I don't have the commute time. And so it's been, you know, good to get things done, like use those minutes in the day and, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Good. Dave Lockley.
Morning, I'm Dave Lockley. I'm president of DTA. I'm doing well this morning. I don't have any issues or elephants. My expectations is to move forward, getting ready for the 2021 school year, which is what we do here in negotiations, is get ready for that next year. And then my silver lining is 6:30 to 7 o'clock. 6:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. So normally, you know, my wife who commutes to Boulder has to, you know, run off and do her 45-minute commute to Boulder every morning. And so she's gotten to sleep in and stay at the house longer. And so I finish up, you know, exercising in the morning, and then the two of us hang out from 6:30 to 7. And actually spend time with one another and have quiet conversations while the kids are still entertaining themselves before breakfast and before all the chaos of the day. So that's my silver lining, that 30 minutes that we've kind of stolen the rest of the day.
Marty.
Marty McCarthy, principal at STEM Launch. I'm getting there today. I'm not there yet. So, you know, I think that both the silver lining and sort of the black cloud has been just the waves of up and downness that I go through, seems like, based on the hour throughout the day. So I know that I'll get there. I'll know that I'll be excited by the work that we do here today and be excited to work with you. So I guess that's the silver lining, really knowing that the people that I work with and the communities I work with will get me to where I need to be.
Laura Mitchell.
Morning, Laura Mitchell. I serve on the Board of Ed. No issues or elephants, and my expectations are that we're going to quickly move through and finish up on elementary ed. Our silver lining to quarantine, we have so many, it's hard to count them all. We feel very fortunate. We know we're very fortunate. I used to work in the .com world, so I'm used to telecommuting, and I've been trying to convince my husband for years that this is really possible. And so, you know, it's pushed him to the point where he's like, wow, you really can do this. And so they're all working on telecommuting. And so I try to tell him, if you telecommute, you know, we could go places and do things, and you don't have to be tied to your office, and you can still be productive. So I think we finally managed to get over that hurdle, and he'll be doing a lot more of that. And he also likes to cook. So we have really nice dinners, and our 14-year-old twins are sitting with us at the table, and we had a lot of good conversation. Very fortunate that one of our older daughters had just moved to Colorado and was living with us and starting a new job. So she's stuck with some old people and her teenage sisters. So it has been a lot of fun, and everybody's getting a lot of good bonding, and it's given them a chance to really live together and get to know each other really well. So lots of good stuff for us.
Darren.
Good morning, everyone. Darren Oliver, principal at Silver Creek Elementary. I'm doing well today. It's Monday. It's a little gloomy out, but let's get going. No issues or elephants. Expectations is hopefully wrap up elementary planning time for the benefit of everyone involved with that. Silver lining, I would say twofold. One, absolutely getting to spend time with my family, because you know when the kids are little, they grow up rather quickly. And the other one is I don't have any outside duty right now, and I love not standing out in the street for 30 minutes. So that's my positive, no outside duty.
Kathy.
Morning, everyone. I'm Kathy Plomer on the Board of Ed. I'm doing well today. I was kicked off of district email, so I'm back on. So that's exciting. My expectations are that we hopefully TA elementary planning, but at least get to the next level. That would be a huge one to get off our plate. My silver lining is, well, as people who are around me often know, I was bemoaning being an empty nester this year. Well, I am not an empty nester anymore. Two of my kids are home, and that's been really nice to spend time with them. And my third is in Chicago. But we've really upped our game with just communication. We're a horrible family with communication. Like, we just don't check in that often. And now we have, and we do a weekly call with my my sisters and my parents on Zoom. And that's unheard of. We're kind of like sick of each other now, but in a good way, you know, because we don't have, you know, there's not a lot new, but it's nice. And I think it's reminding us that we can and should connect more often, and how nice it is to have family, no matter where they are, that we love. So that's been nice.
Matt.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Matt Schmidt. I am the principal at Pathways. I'm doing okay this morning, shaking off the cobwebs a little bit. No issues or elephants. My expectation is to continue the work that we've been doing and make solid progress. It's funny listening to people talk about silver linings. I was trying to, silver lining, huh? I guess I don't have to get up as early. That's kind of nice, even to make a meeting like this. I don't have to get up at 5 anymore, so that's been a positive. And just kind of being able to slow down in general in the post-work life. You know, work is frankly worse than it usually is, but the mellowness of the weekends has actually been kind of nice, and definitely allowed for a little bit more R&R.
Mila.
Good morning. I'm Mila Shepard, Chief of Human Resources, and I'm just fine this morning. No issues, and I think we're going to get some good work done in service to our elementary colleagues and educators across the collective agreement with regard to plan time. And my silver lining is I have not heard the sound of an alarm clock since March 16th, and that's a beautiful thing. Like Matt said, I just am getting up, you know, with the sun and whatever time that is, and there's a whole lot less sort of structure and time boundness. So I love it.
Sandy.
Wow, Mila, I have just an alarm to make this meeting. So I am also grateful for being able to sleep in a little bit. My name is Sandy Sorensen. I'm a science teacher at North Glen High School. I'm good, back in town after a few months, and I'm a little bleary from altitude and time change. So I'll try to stay with the group, but I'm good. Otherwise, it's good to be back. No issues, elephants. Elementary plan time, let's get it done. Sounds good to me. Silver lining, just like Shelly said, mine's easy. I got to spend a whole bunch of time with my mom. I haven't lived with her that long since after my freshman year in college. So it was kind of a tough goodbye, but we had a really nice time. that it was time to come back. And we have our parade at North Glen High School today for our students. I'm so excited for that.
Linda.
I'm Linda Walther. I'm a retired counselor and teacher for the district. I have no issues or elephants. My expectations are to complete elementary planning time language that meets the needs of everyone. And I'm just struggling aligning. Things that I had planned I can't do. I'm in the age group that has to be a little bit more careful, and yeah, this is not how I wanted to live my senior years. So I'm sure we'll all get through it, and excited about today.
Very good. Jim.
Good morning, everyone. Let me begin by apologizing. I didn't talk with Dave about the problem with going alphabetically when you always start at the top of the alphabet. So Dave, they don't mind seeing who sits around the room alphabetically, but they'd like not to start with Allison every time. At least Allison and Teresa would like not to start at the top of the alphabet every time. Going in that order, I think they're fine with. It's like looking around and they see their order, but they would like to start in different places and either go forward or backward from there. I'm Jim. I'm one of your facilitators. I'm doing well today. Don't have any issues or elephants that are going to impact this group at all. I suppose the silver lining for me is that one person wrote about change and described it as being pulled through a knothole in a fence. And the bigger the change, the smaller, the tighter the fit of the knothole. And this is a huge knothole for us. But one of the things we've seen now, and I think we've always known it, and we haven't ever addressed it as well as we could have, are the huge differences in among our students, among the culture itself, and maybe this time, like we have once in a while in the past, we will choose to address some of those differences and make some things last for a long time. The other thing I think is really good is what Laura brought up. We figured out how to use technology in ways that we wouldn't have as a large group. Small groups have for quite a while now, but large groups haven't had to. And I think this group is getting quite good at using it. And other groups will too as it grows. So I think there are some silver linings out there, but this knothole is a tight fit.
Very good. And I'm Dave. I'm one of your facilitators. I'm doing fine this morning. Worked all week with another group last week, and our Friday went from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. So I was pretty zoomed out for the weekend, but it was good. But got some rest over the weekend and doing fine. Jim just created a huge elephant for me. I have to go in alphabetical order because of my old man memory brain. I'm kidding, Jim. I'm just teasing. We'll figure it out so that Allison and Teresa aren't at the top all the time. So I apologize for that. Expectations. Looking over your straw designs, I think you're in pretty good shape with the plan time. So I'm hoping you can check that one off your boxes today. I don't have an agenda for today, so I'm going to have to punt to Jim to get that on there. And silver lining for me, I'm like a lot of you that mentioned family, specifically Teresa talking about her daughter. We took in a young man at Christmas time that was living in his car. He's a friend of Peyton's. And so to get to know him and Peyton together has been an incredible thing for my wife and I. Great kids, 2 seniors, and will be out of school next year, both going on to college. And so it's been really nice to have some time to spend with them and to talk to them and to really get to know them in depth. So that's my silver lining today. So Jim, I'm going to punt to you on the elementary plan time, and I'll do whatever needs to be done.
Thank you, Dave. We did a great job Friday putting things together, and we ended up with a group of 8 doing a straw design meld. And that's, I think Dave put it on the screen or on the Google Doc on Friday, I believe it was, and everybody had a chance to look at that. So let's start through that. Mila, do you have something?
Yeah, actually, if you look at our agenda, we're going to start this morning with a guest. And Jody, if you would let Susie DeYoung, our Chief Financial Officer, into the meeting, we're going to start with a quick review of the sort of the accounting practice behind a possible change of contract dates. And so yeah, I know elementary planning time is high on our agenda, but I wanted to just start first thing with our Chief Financial Officer so we can just hear from her. Now, if you look in your IBS shared drive, you will find, I sent you a letter from the accountants. I've also loaded up a memo that's in your shared drive. And Susie, welcome Susie, hi there. She's going to speak to us a little bit about sort of what that's about and just ground you a little bit in the accounting practices that'll make that possible. It's complex. Thanks, Susie.
Good morning. Let's see. So this morning we're talking about the change in the contract, moving it from a start of September 1 to August 1. And I think historically, all of us, well, at least all of us in the accounting department thought that this wasn't possible due to the fact that there was going to be an expense, a hit to the district's income statement. We have, when I say we, Mimi Livermore and myself, have sat with our auditors and we have reviewed this, and we've realized that it's not an expense. There won't be an additional expense because we've already accrued for that expense. So in the accounting world, what happens is even though the certified contract year goes from September to August, the fiscal year goes from July to June. And Mila, can I hold on just a second? Something just happened, and I will come right back. I'm really sorry. 2 minutes.
Susie's dogs have alerted her to some crazy action at the house, right? Meanwhile, we can use this time if you haven't found the
Good morning, I'm good. I'm
oh, you're good.
The dog locked up. Okay. Someone's in the back.
Thanks, Jody. You can find the document in the IBS drive. It's called Memo-Change in Contract Year for Certified Staff. And so, you know, I don't want you to read and try to listen to Susie at the same time. That'll be confusing, but it's there as background for you.
I apologize.
No worries.
That is the downside of working from home. Okay, so the contract year goes from September to August, but the fiscal year goes from July to June. And so we are required to accrue back all of the costs associated with the contract year into the fiscal year. And so what we have done in the past every year is we've done an accrual. And all that is that's accounting for the expenses in July and August, booking them into June. And we do this every year. So you reverse one, you book one, you reverse one, and you book one. And so they pretty much just offset each other. And so each year we've taken into account that expense with the accrual. Then we reverse it and folks are actually, you know, paid. By shifting the contract year from September 1 to August 1, the solution that we have found we can do is, what we'll do is we will end up reversing 2 months worth of accruals we will pay out 1 month. So we're thinking of it as we will be paying out September's payment, or August, sorry, August, the final payment of the current contract year, August, in June. And then instead of accruing 2 months, we will only accrue 1 month. We will accrue that July, because we'll still always have to make sure that we line up with the fiscal year. So really what it turns out to be is it's just a cash out. It's not an expense, but we will have cash that goes out the door. And we're estimating somewhere at about a little over $14 million to do that.
So Susan, can you talk more about property tax collections implications there? I know September is a spot that a worst case, there could be some
we have about $67 million in our Colo Trust account. And Colo Trust is a local government investment pool. It's liquid funds. We can access those funds at any point. And normally what happens is in a normal year, in May and June, we would collect about $75 million in property taxes. That's just the timing where we get the 2 payments and we get a large amount of property tax income. With this year, we believe that there is going to be a delay of some. We don't believe that it's huge, but there is going to be a delay of some property tax income. What we did was we took an estimate and thought, well, what if we don't receive 97% of that property tax? And that's what I would say is totally worst case. And what this is associated with is the second payment for folks that pay their property taxes in 2 payments and don't escrow it, they pay directly to the counties. That second payment was allowed to be delayed without penalty. And so what we modeled was worst case scenario was if we didn't get 97% of that, and we still made this payment, by September, we would be roughly short about $8 million in the Colo Trust. Now, the district has plenty of cash overall, but we have kind of a corpus, an ongoing pool of funds, $40 million, that is invested longer term. So things that are out beyond a year in investments as we're trying to maximize our investment income. So what would happen is if we don't have those funds come in prior to September, and then again, that's really worst case scenario on 97%, we would need to sell about $8 million worth of longer term investments so that we would have the cash to pay for this. But the district overall does have, we're not going to be in a cash poor position or concern position. And even by selling this $8 million in longer term investments, we will still be in compliance with both Tabor reserves and our board reserve on cash. So we will not be violating the requirements of monitoring 2.4.
So Susie, this is Chris with another question. Would another option be in that circumstance that instead of selling investments at a loss, that if the board wanted to waive their 3% reserve for some period of time, that we could forego selling those investments and still have enough cash on hand? Can you talk through that?
No, because the board's investment is in that longer term $40 million. But here's what I would say is to go to the extreme and assuming 97% of our property taxes are not going to be collected, I tend to believe, unrealistic. And we'll have a better idea of that here within the next about 5 days. We should see by Friday, I think, the May's payment.
And I guess the final question for me, I'll be quiet for a bit. I know there are some people out there talking about letting go of Tabor reserves and converting Tabor into basically real property, school buildings that you would pledge instead to free up some cash. If the board considered that option, they've not even discussed it yet. There'd be a lot of things that would have to happen. Would that help in terms of the worst case and having to sell investments at a loss?
No, because that 40 million. So what's in that, basically what's sitting in that 40 million is going to be the Tabor reserve, the board reserve, and the future years payments on retirement stipends, which is also what we would consider a Tabor reserve. So that those sorts of things all tie into kind of that $40 million of longer term reserves.
Thanks, Susie.
Any other questions?
Other questions for Susie?
What's your dog's name?
Oh, I've got 3. There would be Duke and Hercules and Bruiser.
They're all sounding pretty rough and tough today.
They are sounding rough and tough. The problem is the neighbors are out walking and they just want to be out there with the neighbors.
Susie, Kathy has a question for you.
Yeah.
Susie, I know people are talking about the Tabor reserves, but my understanding is that we would have to pay that back really quickly. I mean, do you know if anything has changed legislatively to change like when you would, your obligation to restock that fund within a period of time?
So if we would keep the Tabor reserve as we have it now, which is a cash reserve, there has been no conversations about changing the timing on the payback. We have 2 other options that would allow us to hold our Tabor reserve and not hold it as a cash reserve, which would change the payback timing. One of those is a letter of credit, but that comes with an annual cost. But basically what would happen is we would hold it's a line of credit. We would hold a line of credit with the bank equivalent to what we needed for our Tabor reserve. And we would pay a couple $100,000 a year to have that privilege. Or what we can do is we can change and we can hold our some buildings in lieu of a cash reserve. If we hold buildings in lieu of a cash reserve, then we'd have to hold a 3% emergency reserve. But in those 2 other cases, we would not have, it would only be if we actually either accessed, one, if we access the funds on the line of credit, or 2, I don't know. I don't know what number 2 is. If you have to use those funds, I'm assuming if you're holding buildings, there's some, that's a path we would not want to go down. Needed that additional cash.
And I think unstated in what Susie shared, so if you take money out of a cash Tabor reserve, say we did that in August of the 2021 school year, then we'd have to pay it back in the following fiscal year, the 21-22 fiscal year. Correct. If you pledge collateral and you have your emergency reserve, my understanding is if you draw money out of that, you've got 3 years to pay it back. Does that sound right, Susie?
That sounds correct.
Other questions for Susie? Marty.
Can you just briefly describe the overall benefit for changing the contract dates?
Well, Mila, on the accounting side, what I will tell you is that it's much easier for us to close the books because we only having to do that 1 month of accrual. We will be finished on July, when payroll finishes there kind of about the 20th of July, and then we can close our books. At this point, we've had to hold our books open until about August. But I know Mila's got a whole bunch of other options.
Yeah. Some of the other practicalities are mentioned in that memo, but I'll just state them for those of you who prefer an auditory presentation. Currently, when a new employee joins a new certified employee joins the organization, their first paycheck would come at the end of September, because that's the beginning of this contract. And that's not realistic to say, hey, teacher, report to work on August 8th or 9th, and then don't get paid until the end of September. So a longstanding construction that we've created is a 13-month pay cycle for their first year. And so that means you get a smaller paycheck because your annual salary, instead of being divided into 12, is now divided into 13. And that creates quite a bit of handwork for the HR, payroll, processing teams. It's a lot of teachers don't, they come and they're not expecting 1/13 of their salary. That's a hardship. But in order to get a check at the end of August, that's really important. So there's this 13-month issue that happens. The other issue that happens is we're back to school and we're working for 2 or 3 weeks on an old contract. We will have negotiated something that will not take effect until September 1st. So people return for a year, and there's this cognitive sort of dissonance about it's a new school year, old contract language. And there are times, and Dave could probably speak to this, when that can be problematic. And so it makes sense to see if we can align the contract to the work year. And if we can do that without added expense to the district, that's our interest. Dave, do you want to add any other factors that you see at play here?
Yeah, I mean, I think you picked up the biggest ones. That, there's just the issue with, for example, we put in new rule, like with the new planning time rules. If we don't roll the new contract, those rules don't go into effect until September 1 instead of August 1. So we spend an entire month with rules and benefits that we've kind of created to help people that they can't actually access, or things that we need to do from a systematic standpoint that make it difficult to figure out when to actually implement the change. Most districts in the area, for the employment part of their contract, there's a few that have a separate compensation contract like Denver, but for most districts that have an employment contract like ours, they have already made this kind of shift at different points. We're one of the last major metropolitan districts. I think we are the last major metropolitan district in Colorado to not have their contract year and school year be closer in alignment. Some of them, it starts officially on the first day teachers report back. Some of them, it's like us, like we're potentially proposing an August 1st date, something to that effect. But we're the last district, major district, to have this kind of major difference in their contract year and space.
And so our intention this morning in inviting Susie and bringing this issue just to your attention would be not to make a decision right now, but to let you hear from Susie directly, let you process the content of the memo, let you ask questions that you think you might have. And I realize you might not, until you have a little more process time, have a question this morning. And so I would ask that you email those to the group. And if we can get some answers from Susie between now and Thursday, our intent would be to bring this issue with some proposed language back to you on Thursday for a conversation and a decision about whether we thought this was the direction to go. So I don't know that we'll spend a whole lot longer on this issue. I guess I just want to throw it back out there for any last questions before we change our agenda to a different topic.
Chris.
So Mila, it sounds like we probably won't do the traditional process when we come back to this issue. given that we're not, the one thing that would be helpful to hear from Susie and others, and perhaps you, is the other option Dave talked about having your contract day start with the first day teacher's report as opposed to like an August 1st date. I don't know what the implications are about that, but if you have information about that now, great. And if not, it'd just be helpful to hear about how that option works and pros and cons compared to the August 1 through July 31 option.
I certainly want to hear from Susie on this from the financial point of view. I think from an HR, just management point of view, that first day of school is variable, it shifts. And so I think that could present some issues in terms of just continuity. Susie?
So we'd be running 2 different payroll schedules, which the team of 4 in the payroll department could not do that. The reason that we would be pushing the 1st to the 31st is the same cycle that we do for everyone, for all administrative, non-exempt or exempt positions, I would say. I understand that we've got a time period that we effectively go kind of from that third or the 15th to the 16th to the 15th on the pay schedule, and when we do that for classified folks, but to change one of the exempt sections would be extra work on the payroll team that I don't think is feasible.
Laura Leppy.
My question is sort of similar, I guess, but you kind of answered it. So I was going to ask how this may affect or impact the new teachers coming in, or teachers who have like those training days prior to when we start. Does that make it more difficult, less difficult, change anything for people who have like those weird days in either July or August or over the summer for training and stuff like that?
This doesn't affect any extra work that people are asked to do outside of the contract, the 185-day contract, but those practices would remain as they are with supplemental pay or stipends or whatever the agreement is. But what it does change for new people to the district is they would receive a 12 paychecks. And so they would no longer be getting that slightly smaller 1/13 sized paycheck. They'd be getting their 1/12 sized paychecks starting in August. And what this does change is that your pay starts in August, your benefits start in August, and then they end at July 31st rather than August 31st. So, it just shifts the 12 months up, but and that's pay and benefits. So that's a shift, but really, I think it's to the benefit of people joining our district. They will get their full-size paycheck from the very first month in August.
Other question? Go ahead, Dave.
Oh yeah, to just add a little bit more to what Laura's question and Miles' answer. As people come in for the new school year in that August timeframe, I hope to God they're not coming in July for that New Year work, but I know that probably happens. But once we cross over into August, where you're paid your 2020-21 school year rate for all of that work, not your 1920, for this example, rate for that work. So it's all your pay is all the new year's allocations, not the old year's allocations. So it's a little bit cleaner, if you will, where there's no longer these questions that I get every August. I work these extra days and my per diem is wrong. I'm like, no, that hasn't taken effect yet. You got to recalculate it on last year's. It just makes it a much cleaner from a pay situation. 2021 work, 2021 pay.
Anything else on this one? All right, Susie, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Susie. I'll be back to you with questions. She can count on that. I always have questions for Susie.
Jim, I'll punt it back to you for the plan time.
Mila, I found the agenda. Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't have it earlier. So I have about an hour set aside now for elementary plan time. and you had the melding group meet, and that's their document is on in the Google file. So who'd like to start, or where would we like to start? Do you want to just go through that document? How would you like to do it?
Dave, would you take us through that?
Yeah, I can take us through the documents as kind of a report out from that group. So last week, the group came together to work through the recommendation, or the different straw designs that everybody kind of put together. And I want to just start by saying, it was a relatively smooth process, but the one place that you will not see a recommendation on at this time is the exact minutes to land on for the purposes of this recommendation. We spent a really long, really good hour plus working through that language, but we didn't have time to reach consensus on that minute. So at the end of this process, oh, sorry, Mila, did you want to add something?
I just realized I'm looking for the document and I wonder if everybody else is on the document. So inside of the elementary plan folder, I'm not sure if you've moved it over there, Dave.
I thought I did.
Sorry to interrupt.
I had to actually Google it in the folder for it to pop up.
Yeah.
That's strange.
Is it the one, Dave, that says plan time straw design melding 5720? Is that the one that we're looking at?
That is the correct one.
It's got the word melding. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got it up in front of me.
Did it not get put in the folder? My apologies.
I don't know where it is. It's in the, I think it's in the team drive. I just want to make sure that everybody, because I saw a few people in other documents and I know I was in other documents. So find the one with the word melding. And let's just make sure everybody.
That's my word for those writing groups. Straw design melding.
What folder is it?
Well, I think it's just in the shared drive, but I think if you type the word melding into your search window, it'll pull up.
That's how I found it.
And I'm seeing a few more of you join me there inside that document. So, okay, I'm going to mute. Thank you.
I know what I did wrong, Mila. I can fix that. I accidentally dropped it into the specials folder, not into the elementary plan time folder. I dropped it into elementary specials, so I will make that adjustment. And I do apologize for dropping it into the wrong elementary folder in our IBS drive. So anyways, what we did, like I said, we did not reach agreement. So you'll see in the document where the number of plan time minutes would belong. You'll see several number signs and a highlight just to indicate that that was not a decision that the group made by itself. The approach that we took was that we took the original elementary planning group's recommendation plus our straw designs, and we kind of smashed the three together, and turned it into, try to turn it into contract language itself. So I don't know if the group would like me to just kind of walk through it holistically. Do we want to read and then ask questions? I'm fine with taking either approach. Any preferences?
Can we take 2 minutes to read it first?
Yeah, I would like to read it.
Okay. So maybe take 2-3 minutes to read it, and then I can come back and do a section by section highlight of the different parts of the agreement or the document.
And I would just remind people that our practice is that if it's all in uppercase, that is proposed language. And if it remains in lowercase, that's existing language. And if you see the strike through, then that's the suggestion that we eliminate some existing language.
Dave, I still can't find it.
All right. I'm going to email it to you.
Just put it in the chat. They just put the link in the chat.
Okay. I can do that too.
If you put it in the chat, you just have to make sure you change the link sharing. You shouldn't have to change the link sharing, David, because I think all these people have access to the doc, right?
They should, yes.
Okay.
But it says only people with Adams 12 emails on the link.
I will fix that. Just give me a second.
Turn the wind chimes back on.
I was just going to say the same thing, Sandy. I miss the birds and the chimes now.
There you go.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, Dave, do you want me to start walking through the doc now?
Everybody ready?
I need 1 more minute.
Okay, thanks. You okay, Allison? Okay, Dave, go ahead.
Ready.
Okay. So the first section, 27.5, maintained the recommendation language for kind of a preamble description of the plan time piece. It kept the moving the self-directed to within the contract day instead of this contact day. And then at the bottom, to try to add some clarity around when the meetings can occur and what types of meetings that we discuss later on in the definition, we suggested the striking of the term or scheduled on a daily and leave it to be directed on a daily or consistent basis. I'm going to keep going unless I see someone's hand pop up or you interrupt me, Dave. So underneath that, in 27.5.1, the only real changes there, we updated the language to be consistent to say educators contract day instead of contact day. And then we struck the blocks for minimum blocks for a couple of reasons. One, if the minimum number of blocks were to, or if the number of minutes for plan time were to increase, you would have to be in greater than a minimum of 7 blocks of time. And so, and there's only really 10 blocks in the schedule. So we recommended that we just strike that, that language, but maintain that there is that the blocks of time can be no less than 25 minutes, especially now that we have kindergartners being full day instead of half day. That kind of language we didn't feel was necessary and also difficult to update in our current environment, depending on the number of minutes we went to. Then in 27.5.2, we kept the recommendation language from the elementary group, talking about what administrative, the kind of the purpose of this time for either administratively directed collaborative time or self-directed planning time, to kind of just give just overall like what was the appropriate use of this time, or inappropriate as well use of this time. In 27.5.2.1, and then its corresponding partner below, what we try to do is pull together a list of different types of activities that could be done in a either block of time, whether it be the self-directed or the administratively directed time. But these were not intended to be all encompassing lists. They're just example lists, just to provide a little bit of clarity of the purpose of this time. You might note that collaborating with peers is located in the self-directed time, if that's, you know, time that the team decides to use as a collaboration time for themselves. But that scheduled administratively directed time, your core meetings, your grade level meetings, DDI, that kind of stuff would fall under administratively directed time that's defined out in 27.5.2.2. Then in 27.5.3, we talk about that each building would need to develop this plan through some kind of shared decision-making process. I like to reiterate that shared decision-making means that everyone, all stakeholders have a way of giving input, not necessarily, it's not a vote, it's not a, I vote for this, you vote for that, but it's some way process that is allows them to give input and feedback on a plan that was developed. And that when the administrators turn in their shared decision-making model to their executive director in October, they would also forward along a copy of their meeting schedule and block of time schedule for self-directed time. The second, and then it would be the responsibility of the association rep in the building to do that, but send that to me as well. This is the common practice or the current practice for shared decision-making models. So this would just be adding the schedule at that time, kind of a snapshot. We had a conversation, you know, every time it changes, would that mean that it would need to be forwarded on to exec directors or to by the association reps to me? No, this is very much a you know, a snapshot moment in time in a process that's already happening. Now there are a few principles that, you know, throw my name, their exec director's name, and their AR's name all in one email and just send it because they're already sending an email to their exec director. So, you it's the same one, so they just toss my name on it. But the vast majority of buildings, I receive only the information about shared decision making from from the building AR, not from the building principal. Then at the last section, you see in the kind of starred asterisks section, we believe that based on our conversations last week with in this setting and also in our melding group, that really we need to spend some more time trying to figure out the right kind of language to determine how to protect and define plan time and kind of that workspace for our special education and special service providers across the district. And so we recommended that a group be pulled together to study that, to propose language to this group sometime next year in the next contract negotiation cycle. So I know I kind of breezed through a lot of that. I saw the chat box flickering, but I couldn't read the chat box at the same time. So I'm not sure if there were questions directed towards me or to others.
That was not a question, Dave. That was just
okay.
Nancy changing her posture.
Yeah. No problem. No
Take care
problem.
of
Just
yourself.
I saw it flickering, so I wasn't. I just couldn't. I didn't know what it was. So
yeah, no, that's fine.
Any questions for me or for the group?
Laura Leppy.
Sorry, I know I was on the team, but I didn't think of it at the time. And please let me know if this is out of sort of like the rules of engagement of next steps. But I had a question about when we took out the no chunk less than 25 minutes piece.
So we didn't take that out. We took it's still chunks have to be greater than 25 minutes. What we took out was the numbers of the limits on the number of chunks that it could be. So in the previous language, it said no more than 7 for general education teachers, 10 for specials teachers as an exception. But because of the window or the schedule, and if we're increasing the number of minutes, those limits would have to be increased to the point of basically being non-existent in the current language.
Laura, did that answer your question?
Yes, see, I was taking notes and I missed a piece, and so that's what I was checking on. So thank you.
Kathy Plummer.
So I was excited because I could do, addition with 10 and 5 and 3 or however many little chunks. So when we go to our straw design, can you tell me with the new language, when you've taken out kind of those parameters, I'm not sure how to talk about it anymore since I was just catching up the last time. So maybe you could talk me through why you took those things out and what kind of things that you did talk about in your meeting as options.
So the intent was that because of just some of the funky schedules, there was originally not wanting, especially for kindergartners and specials driven by kindergarten specials schedules and their special schedules, to not subdivide people's plan times into too small of chunks of time too often, trying to preserve those larger chunks of time for teachers to get, 25 minutes is barely enough time to get started. My brain barely gets engaged in that amount of time. But now with the removal of half-time kindergarten and now it being full day kindergarten, now all of those chunks of times are now aligned with the length of time for the specials, which is, according to our specials recommendation, 45 minutes or 45 to 50 minutes of a period. So they're already in those small chunks of time or the larger chunks of time. And second, if we were to increase the number of minutes in blocks, we would want to also try to increase the number of minutes for the maximum and minimum number of blocks if you were doing the 25, to the point of, say something to the effect of a maximum of 10 blocks for except for art, music, and PE teachers in kindergarten, it would be 12 blocks. And when we look at the master schedules for buildings in the system, that's essentially, we couldn't find that many blocks of time inside the contract day outside of ERD, when you start counting up the blocks. And so it essentially meant all of the blocks of time. And so since we preserved the no less than 25-minute language, we felt like that was sufficient to make sure that people got a good chunk of time.
And Jim, I apologize to you. I jumped in and started taking questions, and you're supposed to be in control of it. The instincts. Sorry about that, bud.
No problem. Other questions?
I do want to maybe piggyback on Kathy's question, and I'm not sure if this is really where she was going, but we're going to be talking about number of minutes as the thing that's still undecided. And I want to be sure we all have a base understanding of what's the possible number of minutes during an average week that we're talking about. And I think I was carrying around the number in my head of 450, like it would be 2 45-minute plans each day times the 5 days of the week. But I don't think that's actually true, because we have Wednesday ERD days and that the minutes of plan are reduced. And so I guess I would look to one of my elementary colleagues to validate this for us. I think we're really talking about a possible 430 minutes, 2 45-minute chunks on 4 days of the week, and like 2 35-minute chunks on Wednesdays. Could somebody please talk to us about like what a typical elementary week looks like?
So, I mean, in order to get to 225 currently, they had to have 5 45-minute blocks of time or larger blocks of time throughout the week to hit the 225. And with the 30-minute push schedule, depending on when schools choose their exact start time, they're either going to have 45 or 50 minutes before their duty day, before duty periods of time. And so we're still talking about 2 sets of 45 minutes to 50 minutes, depending on the exact schedule that they run. But in the current schedule, they could not have less than, I suppose you could not have specials on Wednesdays or shortened it, but then you'd had to have increased it on other days. So the number still works out to 225, regardless of how you kind of massage it into your work schedule. And that's what we saw in those, the schedules that we looked at for the specials committee, that I can drop into the box for when we talk about that. But yeah, so currently they have those blocks of time. Now, you are right that in some schedules, they do decrease it to 30 minutes on a Wednesday, or don't have specials at all on a Wednesday. But that means they've increased the length of specials on different days of the week in order to reach the current number of 225.
That's helpful. Is there any other conversation about sort of like what's the baseline? So we're talking about 450 a week on average. Is that
the only other thing I would
just say I would just say that that's could be true in elementary schedules, but would not be true for K-8 schedules, because K-8s will not get the push, and they're like, our schedules have a shortened planning periods on Wednesdays. So,
and I think we want to be clear that in this effort, we are talking only elementary, not K-8.
I get that, but we also know that there are ramifications with language moving out from this.
Yep. The other thing I would just put in your space is that there is, since we're talking about allocations of time, one thing that does come up is the additional time for administration and for collaboration after the release time on Wednesdays for ERD. So that length of time of early release is an additional block of time that is allocated for, on a perfect calendar. 3 of the 4 Wednesdays are, directed by the district or by the building for collaboration, and then 1 can be self-directed for collaboration. The language for ERD as it stands now, there's teacher-directed Wednesdays, the 4th and sometimes 5th if there's a 5th Wednesday of the month, is a period of time for teacher-directed collaboration, not necessarily for individual work time. But anyways, those are just the other blocks of time to throw into the mix.
Kathy?
So yeah, I was just piggybacking on what Marty said. So I'm assuming that you all talk that this is not going to change anything for middle and high school teachers who are already happy with how their schedule goes for plan time. And then I don't know what you do. Is there like a asterisk or something for K-8s, or do they have to figure it out differently? Since we've got, several of those. So I'm just wondering, as we talk, are we clear that we've satisfied the interest for middle and high, that nothing's going to change for them that they don't want to change?
So the answer I'll give you is that if nothing were to change in the language and we kept the 225 limit, nothing changes for any of our levels based on this language, as far as the amount of teacher directed time by contract people have, and the processes that they can go through to design their schedules through FAC and through shared decision making. All this does is formalize some of that. If we were to increase the number of minutes on the schedule or in the contract, then that's an increase for everybody, not just elementary K-8s. That is, we use the protected, self-directed, collaborative planning time. So, it doesn't take away from any of the current contractual language for what people have in the contract.
Any other questions? Laura Mitchell.
So just, I thought the at least the high school for sure was more, we're changing it to contact day versus contract day. So that's, just following along with what Kathy was saying, is I thought that was more the concern, was that now you're moving high school to contract day versus contact day, and how that might change up for that level.
Yep, no problem. So because of the bell times and start times at the secondary level, they're already pretty much walking in and out with their students. So the change of language, there isn't a 25-minute block of time on either end of the bell time at secondary that would create, once you include duty and everything else, there isn't a block of time that could be planned time. So yes, there's a theoretical change, but not one in practicality.
Okay, that's what I thought I understood. I just want to make sure. So my second question is, when I'm reading 27.5.2.1 and .2, there's the long, scheduling meeting with grade level and core teams to address student and where was it? I was just trying to understand the two different ones, that there's time where teachers can get together to talk about students just amongst teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's in .1.
Yep.
And the one that you're calling out in .2 is when the administrator is there to be part of that process.
Yeah, so it'd be more like, so at the middle level, I'll just use an example of a structure. So it is common for, at our middle levels, to have a weekly scheduled core meeting with, let's say, all the core teachers, their grade level administrator, and potentially a counselor. And that happens every single week or every other week on some kind of rotation. Maybe you have a standing meeting with your, all the 8th grade social studies teachers come together with their administrator. That's a scheduled meeting. So that would fall under that .2, because that's a scheduled, regularly occurring meeting. Whereas, me and my, buddies working out our plans for the rest of this week and next week and whatnot, us scheduling a meeting would be covered under point 1, which is self-directed time, because we are our meeting, our schedule, our job. It may be to accomplish the goal of some other, some larger thing we need to do, but we're doing it on our time and at our leisure, if you will.
Okay, and that's what I think I'm reading out of the difference between point 1 and point 2 in some of those areas is point 1 is that's where when you're looking at student data, you're looking at a particular student or drilling into the students and dialoguing about something very specific about students. And when you get into point 2, most of the time that's more in a generic grade level, breaking out, not so much digging into individual data on a particular student.
I think no, I mean, it could be both. I think the biggest difference, just the way I would just keep it in your mind. So point 1 is stuff that I'm doing with my colleagues. Point 2, and that could happen on a regular basis if I so choose to do that. Point 2 is stuff that my administrator says, you're going to do this every week. And I may or may not be there, right? It's something that's been put in for structural reasons. And I'm saying you have to go do this next Tuesday and every Tuesday or something like that. Not exactly a perfect example, but whereas in point 1, it's, you're choosing how to complete the tasks as a professional to get your job done for your students and for your class.
Okay, thanks.
So I have Colleen, Deborah, and Darren. Colleen?
My question is, you talked, Dave, about the bell schedules, kind of piggybacking on Laura's comment. Do we know the bell schedules with the push yet to make sure that those before and after school times for secondary are not technically considered plan time?
So there's only 8 hours in the day, and because of the length of the student day isn't changing at the secondary levels, the report time may shift by a few minutes here and there, but it doesn't change just because of the physical length of the day. There's not enough time to allocate any other way. Does that make sense?
So because there technically could be in our schedule, there's 30 minutes before we actually start the day, but we have a 10-minute soft start, so to speak, where the kids come in and get to their lockers. That's all still being maintained then?
I can't speak to that. What I can speak to is because because buildings, my understanding, are going to still have to open up and duty times are not considered plan time. You don't have a large enough block of time.
Okay.
Like I said, there's only 8 hours in the day.
Yeah, I would say, Colleen, if your building is requiring you to do duty during that time before school, you couldn't use it as plan time. I suppose there'd be a situation where if duty wasn't required, that some of that time could be considered plan time, but it would have to be sacred.
In middle school, duty is lunch. Like the majority, I would say like 80% of duty in my building is lunch duty. So.
But I would also say,
we volunteer to do that, and that's kind of where it is. I'm just making sure I don't want to open a can of worms later on. I want to make sure I understand it so that I can.
Yeah, and I would just say too, like a soft start, I think would be considered duty. Like if you're supposed to be in charge of kids, that would be considered duty time.
Deborah.
So I also am just looking to clarify right now that after school time from 2:30, 2:45 to 3:15 or so is used for team meetings, teams that run the school, grade level chair, MTSS, leadership team. Am I correct in reading 5.2.2 as that's where we would then move that? I know it would be shared decision making, but that is now the heading. Again, I don't want to later on say something.
Yeah. I mean, so what I would say is those stipended leadership positions, those would be administratively directed if they were happening within the day. However, I don't want to speak for, Darren, who has his hands up to probably speak better to me than me, but I think you know, a good chunk of that, if those are stipended positions, the intent of that is to do that outside of the day on top of. Now, not saying that you can't have meetings during the day. That's not what I'm saying. But if they were to occur, they would be considered administratively directed style meetings, not planned time meetings.
Darren.
All right, so basically the way being on this team and kind of helping strategize this, most elementary, I'm going to say most, I would say majority, the morning time is not duty time. It is time for them to get prepped, ready to go, but it's such a small block. We couldn't use any of this time as a planning time. With a 30-minute push, that's currently with a 30-minute push, that could be a time where certain teams would want to meet, and that would be part of their planning time. As I spoke before, I have a 5th grade team that's a very, very early bird team. And if they say, hey, Darren, we want to do DDI with you on Monday mornings, then we could consider that one of those in the 27.5.2, as long as we all decided that that's what we wanted to do. Currently, it's, as it sits, it's truly 45 minutes during their, when the students go to specials, and then before school, we don't have anything. And then after school, it's pretty much certain days are staff meeting days, certain days are, you know, as we all have the ERDs, but basically that after school is even off limits as well. So to Deborah's question, that there, anything with leadership, anything's extra money is outside of that contract time. So currently we start that at right after 3:15. So once their contract time's over, then they're getting paid for that. What I see this allowing is at least 1, possibly 2 meetings after school that could be with the instructional coach, could be with the SELS, it could be with admin. Or let's say 3rd grade wants to meet during their specials time, and they make it, if we have a decision made that 3rd grade wants to meet every Wednesday, or I'll take Wednesday off, every Thursday during their specials, which is 10 to 10:50. And then that could be that one block that I get to sit in with them or have an instructional coach sit in. So I hope that clarifies some of it.
Other questions? So you have the changes that were suggested. There are the 2 blanks in there that need to be completed before the document's done. So do you want to do a temperature check, see where you're at with the proposed language? And how would you like to complete the missing numbers of minutes?
So Mila and I chatted a little bit about this previously and want to propose something to the group. We suggested putting new, and Mila and I kind of already drafted those up, if that's all right, potential straw design groups to have people discuss if they were good with the language and to see if they could come up with the number to go into that blank, give them a set amount of time, and then come back out and report on where their group is at both like adopting the language and also the if they came to some kind of consensus within their group around a minute allocation.
And Dave, does Jody have those 2 straw design?
It's 3,
teams?
but yeah.
3, sorry, 3 straw design teams, thanks.
Yes.
But I heard some conversation at the start. Does she need some time to switch out the groups, or is she ready to go with the?
No, I'm
new
ready. I'm ready to
straw design?
go. I'm ready to go if it's talking about the 3 groups, not the 2 larger ones. And then I have a 4th group for David and Jim to be in.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah, it's the 3 groups, Jody, that we talked about. And we just thought this would be a way to just mix up points of view and hear different voices in this process. And so I would, the task, the charge is twofold. Make sure that you get questions answered about the language suggestions. There should be somebody on every team that was part of this melding group. And then mostly to talk about the number, the minutes.
So do you want till 10 o'clock and include in that time a break for yourselves? Then talk about those two issues in the groups that have been set up? Would that give you enough time?
I think it's a good start. We can at the very least come for a check-in at that point.
So Jody, I have 9:34. Excuse me, would you set the timer for 26 minutes, please?
Yes, sir. Okay, are we ready?
We're ready.
I believe so.
All right. Here we
Thanks,
go.
Jody.
Mm-hmm.
Only our group is back, I guess.
Yeah,
Hey,
we
Joe.
saw that.
Closed them. I just closed all the other rooms, so you
Oh,
should.
good. Boot them out. Get them back here.
There they come. There they
Back up.
come.
No one kicked us out, so we had to come back on our own.
Mhm.
There we go.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Dave, what's happening?
None. I think everybody's coming back in, right?
Yeah, the only one that I don't see is Chris.
Okay.
Looks like maybe he had technical difficulty and got booted off.
Yeah, kind of looks that way.
Can we get a quick report from the groups to see where we're at? Here he
Jim,
is.
I'll let you go ahead.
Well, group number 2, since I've got my mic on, had a good conversation. We are comfortable with the language recommended. And we spent a lot of our time talking about the number of minutes and the blocks of time and just the minutes. So we need more time in that space.
I can speak. We're in a similar spot. Needed to talk some more about minutes. Language was fine. The one interesting piece that I think is doable and fixable, not fixable, but like adjustable in the language space that Matt brought up was teachers that are serving a 0.2. The concern about what does their schedule and allotment look like under a 0.2 scenario. I know I have my opinions and thoughts on that space, but Matt raised a good point of that's not well described out on what happens to those people under those circumstances at the middle and high level when you are serving a 0.2.
To clarify, do you mean when they sell one of their planning periods to teach an extra course?
Yep. So so the issue becomes they're selling, it becomes a little bit tight to get, if we were to increase the number of minutes for those folks and have any scheduled administratively directed meetings. And so, I described a little bit of the practice of that not being, that part of the 0.2 is, you're being paid for the class and for some loss of plan time and some extra work that you're taking on, but that's not, that Matt pointed out, made a great point to point out that that's not really described anywhere in the document. So when we were kind of transitioning out and working on our conversation, I was kind of looking through our language around the extra duty assignment, that 0.2 assignment, to see if there's a spot that would be appropriate to describe some of that.
Okay, could we get a report from the other group, third group?
Sure.
Happy to jump.
Oh, go ahead, Chris, if you want to. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say for our group, I think we were good with language. I think there's a lot of people gravitating around 315 in terms of a number of self-directed. And then the issue we were talking through further is having adequate time for principals to spend time with the entire faculty on an issue of importance. Darren was sharing out that at a Silver Creek, there's one ERD a month that he has the ability to direct. Other ones are devoted to things like ELL essentials, or you might have other things that come down if we're doing foundational reading, for example. Those sometimes get consumed for things that we have to do. And so we talked about the 5th Wednesday of the month, and might that or might that not be something that is suitable for giving principals time with their entire faculty to work through culture and climate issues, UIP issues, RANDA, et cetera. So I think that's a summary of where we're at. I'm looking at some of my colleagues to see if that's a fair summary.
Jim, you're muted.
Any questions from anyone in any of the straw design groups? Comments? So it sounds as if there's maybe a change with the point 2 issue that needs to be incorporated or might be incorporated, and then some discussion about the number of minutes. Do you want to go back to a melding group? Do you want to go back to your straw design groups?
I think we probably need a little more time in our straw design groups. I'm saying that as a question, but it feels like we do. Others?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit shorter time because I know we're running low on time.
Yeah.
So, Mila, how long would you think we should be in those groups?
We could, I don't know that we'll have a solid answer, but maybe 15 more minutes at least would be a good shot.
Okay.
I have a question. So are we going, because I know we got switched in our straw design group. So are we going back to our lists and trying to combine them again? Or I know there's that one list that was already combined by a group. What are we trying to do here? Or are we still on minutes?
We're on minutes.
Yep.
Okay.
I think I've heard all 3 groups say that they're good with the language that had the title melding. So I think we're just all but there. And I think the only thing we're doing right now is just trying to firm up what are the minutes.
Yep. That sounds good. 15 minutes, we can do that. Mila, page 86 of the contract under extra classes is where it talks about point 2. Just so there's that paragraph under extra classes. I'd like to, whether it's right now or in the next group, maybe shoot some language or some suggestions. I'm going to run it past Matt in our straw design group first, but maybe bring back that to you.
Sounds good.
All right. And do you also want to talk about the asterisks at the bottom of your meld design about the study group?
I'm going to say that I feel like we're all in agreement that that should happen. Is that an assumption that's inaccurate?
Well, I don't know if we all agree that it should happen, but it's going to happen one way or another. So,
right. I don't want to be presumptuous, but we have to work on that.
I don't think Heather or Deb would allow us not to have that being done next year. So
So just to confirm, you guys want 15 minutes back into the breakout rooms, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, please.
All right.
Y'all ready?
We are. See you in 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Hold on, Chris. Since you got kicked out, I got to put you back in your group. Hold on. Were you in 1 or 2?
I was with Dorman, Lan, Colleen, Darren Oliver. I can't remember what number group that is.
That's number 3. Here you go.
All right. Thanks.
Sorry. I just closed the room, so they'll be back within 20 seconds.
Thanks, Jody. I want to compliment you. You do such an incredible job at this. We really appreciate it. It takes a lot off of Jim and I.
Absolutely. Happy to help.
I'd like to clone you and take you to everywhere that we're bargaining. It'd be nice.
I'd like to clone myself for other reasons to have you work.
I hear you there.
Looks like they're coming back now, so you should.
Yeah.
Sorry, Shelley.
All right, Jim, I think we have everybody back. You want to unmute yourself? And
All right, are we ready for a report back? Mila, do you want to start us off with a report of your group?
Okay, I said we're still talking, and now I'm going to say we're still talking again, and I'll figure out this mute. Yeah, we're still having some good conversation.
Okay. Next group.
Yeah, we also were still in the middle of conversations. There was a desire expressed by a couple of folks that if we increase the number, that they would want to get some more stakeholder feedback from their colleagues on that time. I expressed that, some, some from the association's lens, we've done some of that reach out on it and done that work. But, we are talking about some changes in language. Matt and I tossed back and forth a sentence that I can send out to Matt and the group, or sorry, to Mila to look at. And then if we're in an okay spot, maybe send that to the group to address some of the issues around the .2 language and practice. And then Bo had just started to engage us in a conversation around ERDs and the minutes and ratios of using ERD time for to basically get rid of the self-directed ERD times. He was kind of walking us through his thinking in that space.
All right. Last group.
So I'd say we're still talking, we talked briefly about the .2 issue that folks raised before. It seemed like that was not an issue of deep concern for the group. And then in terms of minutes and ERDs, just a lot of discussion about finding the just right balance between self-directed collaborative time and then whole faculty time to do positive work together as a team.
All right. So I'm thinking you want to move this to Thursday?
I don't know whether we can push a couple of the other issues that were on our agenda to Thursday, and whether we would just be better served to, while we're all warmed up on the topic, to spend the rest of today in this space and see if we can't maybe get closer. But I will just ask the rest of the team's opinion on that.
Anyone else? What about staying with this? There is an item I would like to talk about. I'm thinking right now, you may be talking about getting together in June. I know calendars are filling up very quickly in June. So it'd be nice, if not today, no later than Thursday, to look at dates for June.
Yeah, and I have some, Dave and I have worked on some extended negotiation draft language that we would add to our IBS MOA. And so we can, I think that may already be loaded into the shared drive, but that would help us pave the way for any further conversation. Dave, you want to add any thoughts about that?
No, I mean, you know, I think that it's loaded in there for folks to take a look at. I would suggest we can tackle that first thing on Thursday, but I'd suggest everybody to take a look at it. Basically, what Mila and I did as far as the language goes is we added a bullet to the IBS MOA and basically threw in some language that we were going to continue this process in the May and June timeframe because of this current emergency. You know, not trying to establish a pattern, but just calling out the late budgeting. I mean, now that the legislator's not even meeting until the 26th now, for just the one year, and tagging it in as part of that MOA seemed to make sense since we're adjusting that language to put it in that language space.
So Jim, I think that's really all the further attention we need to pay to that today. But
Okay.
to your point, you know, we do need to, and I may send out some holds on days, just not out of any presumption, but just to get spots earmarked on calendars, if that's okay with folks.
Yeah, and Mila, I think I'm a little bit of the problem there because most of my groups are doing the same thing. So my June calendar is starting to fill up. So, but Thursday's fine. Thursday's not going to cause me any problems.
Okay. Well, so I think I will send out some holds, but that's not meant to presume anything. It's just, we can cancel it if we don't proceed.
So Jim, I'm thinking that they want to go back to the groups till what, about 10-2, Mila? Is that what you're thinking? Okay. So Jody would come back at 10-2 is when we want them to come back.
That's about 15 minutes, right?
Yeah, a little more than that.
That's all you have.
20, you want to go like 20 minutes or what, 15?
Yeah, let's go long enough that we can get some work done. If we can get it done in 10, that's great. If it takes us 20, let's take 20.
Okay, so I'll put it for 20, and then if people in, they could just close out their group.
Yeah, Jody, Colleen's got a hand up though before you go. Go ahead, Colleen.
I feel the need to talk to my team, and I'm wondering if we could caucus for a short time. I'm wondering if that's okay. If it's not, just tell me it's not, and I will go to my breakout room and happily continue.
But I would second the motion.
Chris, do you want to say anything in that space?
So I think there was some discussion about the possibility of caucus time before the call started. And I think there's maybe multiple perspectives about whether administrative members of the team and board members could caucus and do that outside of a public session. I believe our legal counsel feels like we can. So if there's a belief that a caucus of the respective parts of the team, I would be supportive of us doing that. And I think administration would want to go into a non-public group for that portion. And I assume teachers would want to do the same.
Okay, Jody, can you make that happen?
Those are the two big groups, Jody.
For how long are we talking for that?
Yeah, you want the two big groups?
Yes, please, for 15 minutes.
Okay, just give me a second because I'll have to delete all these rooms.
And we'll come back sooner if we, you know, if we don't need the full 15 minutes, either group can opt back into the large group.
Yep.
Thanks, Jody. I know you're having to retype all of that.
No
so
problem.
appreciate that. And so what we'll push to next Thursday's meeting will be, I'll have some draft language around contract date realignment for us to respond to. I would have some, we would have this as extended negotiation draft language for us to respond to. And hopefully those two TAs right away off the top. And then if we need to finish this topic, and then we need to visit the elementary specials MOA and the special ed letter draft group. So, you know, still a full day on Thursday, but that's the order that I'm thinking.
Sounds good.
You guys ready?
Ready.
think so.
All right, 15 minutes. Here we go. See you soon.
So Jody, we just came back to the main room in case they leave early. They leave their their meeting rooms early, so. She might have taken a break. There they come.
Hello.
Hello.
I think all we're going to have time for is probably group report, and then some kind of a closing.
Okay.
Agreed.
I think we've got everybody back, so.
So, teachers, what's the report out?
We spent time discussing, well, really the whole time discussing some of the conversation in the air around ERD and, you know, what that would mean, what that would look like, and just kind of let people express their opinions about it. There wasn't any like, you know, no common understanding, just a lot of like, well, this is what it looks like for me. This is what it would look like for me. Just a lot of expressing out of individual experience and perception on the ERD time and conversation that was in the air.
District?
So yeah, it just feels like up until the last week or so, I think as an administrative member of the team, the issue I thought we were solving was around finding 225 minutes of self-directed planning time at elementary. And certainly the planning time committee discussions the last 2 years have been premised around that notion. The 315 idea, which apparently is derived from surveying teacher members, is a pretty dramatic change from what problem we've been trying to solve heretofore. I think the angst of a lot of folks who are administrative members of the team is they don't know how a change of that sort affects their colleagues and the work that's going on in their buildings. So I feel like on the administrative side, we need to take the temperature of some principals and assistant principals about different ideas that have been raised here today, similar to how the teacher part of the team has worked. And then hopefully we'd have that information gathered and be able to present it on Thursday.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so.
All right. So where do we want this first on the agenda on Thursday?
I think that sounds good. I think we just need to figure this out.
Yeah. I sort of feel like once we get into this big meaty topic, it tends to take time. So I think if I had my druthers, I would do what I was describing before the breakout, which was to address the proposed language in the extended negotiations and the proposed language in the contract realignment. Those are both two really time-sensitive issues that have to have a tentative agreement so that we can make anything else happen. So I'd like to tackle those first and then jump into this. And
all right.
Yeah.
Dave and Mila, it might be good for you and I and Jim to get together just to chat for a few minutes, like tomorrow or the next day or whatever. Yeah, and so
or if we had time to stay on today,
we could do that.
Works for me.
Yep.
Okay.
Does that work for you, Dave? Okay.
Yeah, that works for me. I have another meeting, but it's I can come in the middle of it. It's not gonna. I'm not running it, so.
So we're down to 5 minutes and we have about 20 people. So if everybody would take about, how many words today, Dave? You think 3?
Yeah, let's go 3.
Let's do a quick checkout, folks.
All right, and I'm going to start this time with Dorman.
Doing okay.
Nancy. Nancy, not there. I'm going to move on. Laura Leppy.
Keep on keeping.
Dave Lockey.
Well, I don't know who that is, but call me Lackey. I don't know. That's where I am. I don't know.
Okay. Marty.
Here we go.
Laura Mitchell.
I guess I feel like we found the point.
Okay. Darren.
Compromise by all.
Kathy,
New learning and discussion. That's 4, sorry.
Matt,
Putting plans together.
Mila,
Minutes are always hard.
Sandy,
A good teacher PBL.
Linda,
Keep on trying.
Allison,
Maybe one day.
Teresa,
Remaining positive and optimistic.
Deborah,
Caught off guard.
Shelley,
Continued work together.
Heather Espinoza,
Just keep swimming.
Bo,
More to come.
Colleen,
Never enough time.
Chris,
Trust the process.
Heather Gracious,
The only way out is through.
Jim.
Let's do it.
3 words are hard. All right. Mila, Dave, Jim, stay on. The rest of you, we'll see you on Thursday.
Am I stopping the stream?
Just leave Mila and I and Dave for about 5-10 minutes maybe,
Let's
okay?
stop YouTube.